Hello and welcome to episode number 4 of the Nasty Metal Podcast. Now, for episode number 4, again, with most of these topics, there'll be at least 5 topics, but I think for this one, there's probably at least 4 real topics and so on. I think in many ways, there's probably at least 3 really real topics here, but I've got it, but anyway, let's just stick with at least 4 topics here. Now, the first this is really not completely a topic, but it's definitely would fall under a topic in some ways, but I don't consider it a actual topic here, but it's one thing I definitely want to at least bring up, and it's a bit of an announcement. At least it's for at least content, in regards to content this week. I definitely need to point out that I will not be in town here this week. So there won't be very much content for at least this coming week here. Though there will be a video up at least sometime late today or maybe early Monday, but you probably are going to end up watching it Monday anyways. But it's the only video that will be up at least of this whole entire week. It's of course is a Album of the Week video on Whitesnake's Ready and Willing, which will, of course, it's a 40th anniversary for that album, and it's, since about the day that you're probably listening to this podcast, it's that album, again, it hit its 40th anniversary, so that, again, is its Album of the Week spotlight. But that's the only video that will be up this week, because, again, I will be out of town. But however, by next week, I will be back in town, and there will be some stuff that will be coming the following 2 weeks here. The video that will be up on Monday will, of course, Sunday, there will actually be a box set showcase. It will probably be episode number 7. It will be on Krautrock 2 original album series, which, again, since I did a box set showcase on the first volume of Krautrock, it was very, very fitting that I'd be doing, a box set showcase on volume 2, basically, which again is Krautrock 2 original album series. Then, of course, Monday will be a Album of the Week, which will be on, Deep Purple's groundbreaking album in rock, or Deep Purple in rock, depending on the way that it tends to be pronounced. Since, again, it's hitting its 50th anniversary, I thought it would be fitting to spotlight that album on as a Album of the Week. And so then, of course, on Wednesday will be another album review. It will be another one in the line of the Doomsday's Today Records reviews. It will be for Of Blood and Mockeries, Heaven, Eternal Damnation. Then, of course, Friday will then be a review for Snake Eyes' new, most recent album this year, Evil Must Die. And of course, Sunday will be another box set showcase, which will actually be for... I have yet completely debated on which one will be. I'm planning on it either being the Tank Filth Hounds of Hades box set that I've had for many years, or it could be on the Warlock box set that I've had for at least a couple of years here. I think we'll probably be on the Warlock box set, since it will be a pretty short one, because again, it's probably 4 CDs in there, so it will be that will be your box set showcase that week. And of course, that Monday, it will then be Album of the Week on, of course, for Cultosaurus Erectus from Blue Oyster Cult, which again, that album will be hitting its 40th anniversary. So that would be fitting to spotlight that classic album from Blue Oyster Cult. And of course, then that Wednesday on that week will be another Doomsday Today's Records review, and it'll be for Bush Hog Suicide and a Skeletal Pose, which is probably the most recent Doomsday's Today Records release. And of course, that Friday will be a review for, of course, the most recent follow-up album. And it's definitely was a request from one of the band members. It's Black Phantom, titled 0 Hour Is Now. That will be that Friday's Album of the Week, and that will be it for at least these following 2 weeks. And, there'll be a content afterwards, but since I like to always announce at least 2 stuff because of it. It's just, who knows? That's just the way I do my business here. So with that, that's pretty much it for at least what's coming up for content. Now, now on the topic of channel-related stuff, I definitely want to talk. This is more like a public advisement to at least for those that want to, comment or post links in, or at least again regarding of just making comments or replying on my videos. Now, it has nothing to do with anything that's offensive or anything that will offend me. It has more so to do with just most of YouTube's just BS rules, and that's regarding posting links in my in the comments section. Now, again, there's not really much of a problem when I post links in my description box, but it always seems to have a problem with people that want to post links into it, and it seems to what the last time things when it comes to posting links, apparently it will not be approved automatically from YouTube. It will be something I have to approve, or it gets accidentally moved to spam, to my spam box. So, and again, it just seems to be one of the rules that, again, for posting links, apparently it has all to do with their regulations or that they have their fear of people posting links to harmful sites. When most of the times, whenever, again, apparently one of the band members of Thrust, when I had reviewed of their, as a part of my US Power Mode month, which was, Fists Held High, they apparently had posted a link, I think, to a video of their most, it was like, I think, either 2 years ago, they had released an album. And I think they had posted a link to one of their videos on one of my channels. Well, it didn't get automatically approved by YouTube. Instead, they had moved it to spam, and I had to pretty much approve it. And of course, most recent times here is, of course, Paul of Doomsday's Today Records. He has posted plenty of, or has at least made comments with, of course, with links in them, and apparently they weren't either automatically approved or they got moved to spam, and it definitely... It pretty much annoyed me, and I had pretty much tried approved every one of them, but it seems like one of those posts or comments that he had left on my videos that had a link to them, it was, I think, one of the ones I accidentally forgot to put the links to, at least to their 2 sites there. He had posted the links, and he at least tried to do them, and YouTube basically moved them, or didn't want to automatically approve them, and I had approved it, and it still somehow didn't want to show up visibly on the channel. So pretty much I'm just advising for those that are contemplating on adding links into their comments or their posts or their replies on my videos, it's best that you don't, because it will not be automatically approved by the head people over at YouTube or the bots that run YouTube. It won't be automatically approved, and will probably accidentally get moved to spam. And even when I do try to approve it, it's probably not going to visibly show up, because that's how YouTube have made their format, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's out of my control. So I know it's BS. But again, it's out of my control. I've tried everything to try and at least ease some of it, but I can't do much about it. So I'm just advising. It's a public advisement from me here over at Nasty Metal Productions. Do not post any comments with links in them. Even if I forget to add any links in my description box, don't do it. It's probably not going to be approved by YouTube, and will probably be added to spam. And even when I do try to approve it, who knows whether or not it will then be made visible on the channel. So it does no good. So with that, I apologize for that, but again, it's what YouTube has done. It's their rules. It's their site. They can do whatever the fuck they want with it, but it's all out of my control. So I'm just definitely, again, making it aware of everybody. Don't be posting links or in your comments when you leave them on my videos. Don't be doing that, because of it's BS. But that's the best. That's what I can come up with. It's ridiculous. So with that, let's definitely move on to some more lighter side of here. Let's have me move on to some actual good topics here. And this is a great one, a great palate cleanser after after the 10 minutes here. This is, and again, right here on my notes here, it falls under what the fuck metal news, or WTF metal news. And if you are completely aware of Savage Grace, or at least Chris Logue, who of course, again, the one of the founding members of this band, if you are aware of the most recent post or most recent thing with Chris Logue, you'll know what I'm going to be talking about, and it involves, I mean, it just apparently, again, it just comes out about how apparently just recently there was apparently, according on Metal Archives, on Savage Grace's page there, they are being linked at, or they have been marked as active again. They're being marked as active, even though it only seems to show Chris Logue as the only member. There's nobody else yet here that are at least that are part of his new lineup. You know, there's nobody else that's being being listed as any current lineup. It's just Chris Logue. So, but yet it's being marked as active. Again, 2020 to present. I am on Savage Grace's Metal Archives page. However, then just before or even after this, people then start posting something I think he had left on his site, or at least on Savage Grace's site, and it's by far the most I'll get to his recent past here, and again, it falls under like just what the fuck. But here, people were being excited until this got posted, and now it's becoming one of the biggest memes right now in terms of in the metal community. It's a fucking meme, and so here we go. This is apparently was posted on Savage Grace's site, and it's from Chris Logue of Savage Grace. Now, it reads as the following. Attention ladies, if you are a born female between 18 to 27 years old and you live in North America, South America, the UK, EU countries, or Ukraine, and you enjoy international travel, cruising, fine food and wine, beaches, the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, and fun and adventure, then please send photos and a brief bio to girls@savagegracemetal.com. Chris Logue is always looking for attractive and interesting women to share his world with. I'm pausing there. I'm pausing. If you heard me read that right, then there's obviously nothing wrong with your ears, because there's so many things wrong with that fucking post from Chris Logue there of Savage Grace. Now, before I really get into really deciphering the post, let's take a step back. Let's actually go back to 2005. I'm going to read this on Chris Logue's page right here, or at least his profile page here on, of course, Metal Archives here. Supposedly back in 2005, he was arrested for practicing quack medicine. Before I really go any further there, I gotta really also comment on this. Quack medicine. I doubt that ever was put on the actual report. I don't think anybody else was using quack medicine as a serious term for this. I bet that was added in from here, somebody here who posted that on the Metal Archives. That had to come from somebody here on the Metal Archives. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to name names here, even though I'm looking at names here, because again, added by and modified by, and again, they're two different names, but I'm going to be professional and not name any names. You know, you can look on there and you can see the names. So one of them probably had to added quack medicine, because I don't think that was ever on the actual report. Anyways, I digress. Without a license, under a false identity. He later allegedly opened a clinic in the Caribbean. Go back to the post there that he had posted on his site at Savage Grace. In the Caribbean, claiming to treat cancer patients under the same identity. I guess the same false identity, which it's never been publicly put out there on what identity Chris Logue was using. But I digress here. Again, the same identity using unproven alternative treatments. He also reportedly runs a porn production company and is currently using the Savage Grace website to attempt to recruit young cis women to supposedly keep him company. And of course he's still using the fucking website here. Again, he's still using the same website, obviously, because of where the hell would this post would have came up? How would this would have surfaced? I am completely right now face palming myself right now. I am completely. There's just so many things wrong right here, and of course, they've also put out there that if you are a born female, basically making it apparent that you can't have any boy parts, I guess, on you. You have to literally have every female parts. You know what? I'm gonna definitely put out there. I don't know if this is probably gonna offend some people, but you know what? Just to give this guy a nice, good slap of reality. I hope I hope that the female is at least from 18 or 19. I hope that it ends up again. As far as when it comes to transgender operations, that they are these transgender operations these days are so good that when you remove a part, you literally can't even tell if they really were born a female or not, because they are, or at least were born a female. It's that good these days. So I really hope that he does end up getting a female within 18 or 19 and does have, supposed girly parts and everything. And then turns out she actually had an operation. So just to give him a nice, good slap of reality. I just want to give him a good fucking slap of reality for the bullshit he just fucking added here. That he just put out there. I mean, this guy here, again, on his Metal Archives page, he's 58 years old. He's 58 years old, and he's fucking putting out there that you have to be a born female and your age has to at least be between 18 to 27 years old. And you have to at least live in North America, South America, the UK, EU countries, or even Ukraine. And he's just there's just so many things wrong with that fucking post, okay? Now again, there's no problem with you having preferences in women, okay? There's no law that you have to have at least a preference. However, there are also things out there that are, at least you have to at least be smart enough to also know what you're not supposed to put out there in public. It's one thing to keep it private, but the thing is, you're being stupid and you're actually putting this stuff out there. I mean, yes, it's creepy to begin with, but the thing is, there should be a law, though, to tell you how to properly put stuff out there, how to properly expose yourself. And in many ways, he did everything wrong, and now he has just once again exposed himself. It's oh my god, I'm just completely facepalming at all of this right here. I'm not going to even touch on his, if you enjoy traveling, again, that's his personal preferences. But again, another thing, at the end, Chris Logue is always looking for attractive and interesting women. Again, it's one thing if you are a born female between 18 and 27, but you also have to be attractive looking. And again, he's 58 years old, and it's pretty ridiculous. It's by far fucking ridiculous. So, I actually had something here I was about, this is what I was going to say. To be quite honest, his demands right here is as more comparable to, of course, the list of girlfriends demands list that was posted on Reddit, which, of course, again, I'm on the Reddit page right here. Again, get tested, stop getting shit-faced. He basically, what he just put out there is as more comparable to, I guess, the list of demands that your girlfriend wants, or the memes that get posted on the internet about what girlfriends demand from somebody. This is what it's. Chris Logue is basically as comparable to a complete, overacting girlfriend, whatever, to someone again who makes those kind of demands. It's pretty ridiculous. So this whole thing's completely it's ridiculous. And at this point, there's of course right now, as far as when it comes to as far as any expectations for any of the Savage Grace reunion, whatnot, people are definitely on social media are basically saying they really now hope not that the Savage Grace reunion doesn't even happen. Everyone's definitely pulling out. They are completely disgusted by this, saying that this is creepy. They don't want to hear anything from them now. I mean, and you know what's even worse about this as well? Let's again go back here to the page. I mean, it's also it falls in line with what he posted here. I mean, it was then again being reported that he runs a porn production company. Who knows whether or not if he's actually posting this here for if he's posting this to. Who knows if this is really not meant for him to get a girlfriend, but meant, again, as a way to recruit more women for his porn production company. And again, he used his fucking porn production company, and as far as the emails, was using the same email that he just used here. He's using the same website and everything. Just like he was using here this week. He's still using it. So who knows whether or not if he's just putting this out there as a way as another way to recruit women for his porn project or whatnot. So who knows? Everything about this is fucking creepy. It's completely insane. Oh my god. Again, I'm one of those who would have loved a Savage Grace reunion. I mean, albums such as The Dominatrix, Master of Disguise, and After the Fall from Grace are just classic metal records. They're good metal records. But to find out, as usual, when you find out how as far as some of the members, especially one of the founding members, is kind of a bit of a creep in real life, it kind of does bum you a bit. It does kind of take you back. It's like, wow, again, I hold some of those albums in high regard. But to just find out what kind of person he kind of is in real life is like, it's a bit of a shocker in many ways. So, who knows? Maybe this is the reason why why Kenny Powell left Savage Grace and formed Omen. Maybe because of Chris Logue was kind of a creep then, was a little bit of a weirdo. Who knows? It's probably the reason why. So I'm gonna try and do everything to move on. I think I've commented on plenty of this as much as I could. I talked about what I could on this. I gave my thoughts on much. So I'm just gonna definitely move on from here. You get the picture. You get the idea. Chris Logue, he had one fucking job. He had one fucking job to do, and guess what? He fucks it up. Now that one job was to just don't do anything that sets you up. Do anything that will backfire. Just do everything normally and get a reunion going. That's all you had to do. You didn't need to go anywhere further and just use it as a way to promote your bizarre fucking lifestyle that you probably should just keep privately. You should have kept privately in your time, in your spare time. Okay, he should just done that. But instead, what does he do? He does this. And now every talks of reunion, it's just went out the window. It would be great, as somebody posted this, I think, on, Forces of Steel or even Revelations of Doom forum, which is, again, ran both by Painkiller of both those two forums. I think people have made the post that they would like to see Chris Logue get together with John Cyrus of Agent Steel. Because at this point, I think these two would make a great team. So just fucking do it. All right. I'm just going to move on now to something else. Here we go. You know what? This is another great palette cleanser. This is actually reissue talk. I definitely wanted to talk about it since I just recently got it in. Of course, you probably saw the seal reveal video from yesterday, but it's on the King Diamond and Mercyful Fate reissues from Metal Blade. Which, of course, again, Metal Blade was recently, and it was due to King Diamond, I think, pretty much requiring the rights to a lot of this catalog from Roadrunner Records. He required and so now, I mean, Metal Blade, I think, for a while had the rights, to albums like Melissa and so on, and that's why they were reissued on vinyl, but it seemed like they still had rights, I guess, to a lot of the masters, release them on CD through Metal Blade. So it seemed like since he now required the rights from him, it's why we're now seeing the reissues. For, of course, again, it was first back in April. It was the reissues for King Diamond's Fatal Portrait, up to the Abigail in Concert album that was released. I think sometimes the late 80s or early 90s it was released. So everything up to there, and then of course this month it was, and it goes June 5th and June. Reissuing, of course, now we're focusing on Mercyful Fate. Basically, we're seeing finally the first standalone reissue of the Mercyful Fate EP from 1982, which for the longest time that has been completely out of print, especially for standalone copies. I mean, the original Rave On Records pressing for the first Mercyful Fate EP it fetches for an arm and a leg. It's one of the rarest and are very much hard to obtain releases from Mercyful Fate. So the fact that it was getting a standalone reissue, even on CD, I mean, for the longest time, the only way you probably would have been able to get a hold of the EP would have been a part of the beginning compilation. So it's now something to now finally get that EP by itself. And of course, the Metal Blade is also reissuing the beginning as well. So I think it's a little bit of an odd, because even though I think the only reason is because of the bonus material, because of that, the beginning had the Black Masses track, which is was a B-side to the Black Funeral 7 or 12-inch back in the 80s when in support of the Melissa album, and of course it even contained like the Friday Rock Show sessions or the BBC One, I think Radio 1 sessions. I think either their Friday Rock Show or BBC Radio 1, which contained early raw or recorded versions for like classic songs off the Melissa album, which then later on, most of those 4 songs got reused as bonus tracks to the 2005 reissue of Melissa that Roadrunner had released, which came with the DVD of the concert at Dynamo, and the Dynamo concert from that period. So now they're reissuing that, and of course they are also reissuing the Return of the Vampire compilation. Even though I own that already on CD, I've got an original BMG Road Racer CD pressing, which I had found just about, about almost 2 years ago. I had found, finally I had scored that, so I don't really need, and of course they're using the same original masters that was probably used on that CD, so I don't really need it. I mean, it'd be nice too, but it's just the only reason anyone would want to rebuy it is because of probably its packaging. It's, again, a mini LP vinyl replica CD format. Still, again, that's getting, they are focusing on Mercyful Fate. Who knows, they might even do newer reissues of some of the 90s era material, maybe. And so they definitely are working a lot of that. And I think, and again, one of the main reasons also behind why they wanted to do these reissues was because King Diamond wanted Metal Blade to go back to the original Dynamic Masters, which was interesting. Again, it's definitely been now made apparent that he was never a fan of the 97 remasters, but he definitely wanted to go back to the original masters for the original dynamic sound that as they were recorded. And again, that week I had gotten in Melissa, and I was very much, was very familiar and was definitely, with the 97 remaster, and I always thought it sounded fine, but getting the dynamic mastering copy of Melissa, even in its unremastered state, it's still, I have to say, it just made me more realize how, when compared to Don't Break the Oath, it probably had the best mastering and the best mixing and production compared to Don't Break the Oath. I mean, we're talking about 2 classic albums. I mean, Merciful Fate were one of those rare birds where that didn't really fall into the sophomore slump category. They definitely had where most of their albums were at least were on top notch quality. They never really had that that sophomore slump feel. They definitely, again, album like Don't Break the Oath at times is almost just as on par with Melissa. But one of the big difference and one of the biggest elephants for that album was its mixing and production. And that's, again, when reading the biography behind, or the comments surrounding that album from, of course, some members such as Michael Denner and Hank Sherman and King Diamond. They definitely point out that they had more involvement with that album than they actually did with Melissa when it came to the mixing and the mastering for that album. They were a lot more involved with Don't Break the Oath than Melissa, which is probably that could be one of the reasons why Don't Break the Oath turned out the way that it did, because there was a lot more effects. There was way more production work that was done on Don't Break the Oath than on Melissa, which is, I guess, it just adds to the example that just because you add more to something doesn't mean it gives the album more. It doesn't make it sound more. In many ways, more is less, and I think the less that was done to Melissa, I think why I think in many ways also stands the test of time. I mean, I've been listening to it again just recently, and it still holds up. It's still one of my absolute favorite albums of all time. And again, compared to, of course, again, just to really hear it in its unremastered state, it still has, it just, in a way that just is such a crystal clear, it sounds clear. It's got a clarity to its sound. Even when it was remastered, it had a clarity to its sound, but compared to at least Don't Break the Oath, even in its, when I've heard the samples of it unremastered, it definitely, just because there was more production to it, it didn't make it sound any better. I think it took away some of the things that probably made at least Melissa good. I mean, do not get me wrong, Don't Break the Oath is a great fucking album. Again, I own that on CD. I don't need to rebuy it. I just didn't have a copy of Melissa. But again, layering these two out, when going back, when you definitely compare, there's just something, I think just the less I think they did to Melissa, I think it just turned out the better. It just turned out the best, and it's got to me, even compared to at least King Diamond's solo work, as far as, the production work and mastering, even I have to feel that even there, I know there's some that have said that, I mean, don't get me wrong, Abigail's a great fucking album. I mean, I've spotlighted that album on this channel before. It's a great album. However, when you compare the production work to, of course, Melissa, I would say to my ears, I think Melissa even still hands down has some of the best production. It might as well, in some ways, I feel like it might as well be Back in Black from AC/DC in terms of its production style and its mastering, because fuck. I think, again, the more that is, when you by the time the late 80s, I think albums had more done. Even at King Diamond, Abigail, I mean, compared to like something like Dr. Feelgood, it's still raw. But when you're comparing it to an album like, for an example, Melissa, I think Abigail sounds a little too much in production. Again, that could be due to the influence of Don't Break the Oath in terms of the production and mastering and all the effects work and what that was done into it. I think it was the result of that. But Melissa, to me, is like perfect from beginning to end in terms of even mastering or production. It's just perfect to my ears. There's just nothing dull of that album. I love every bit of the note of that album. So hearing it in its unremastered, it just made me more aware, and it's made me realize that it is the best sounding album of any of the stuff that I would say that King Diamond has released. Now, I am being biased. I haven't heard any of the other King Diamond albums like Them and Conspiracy or even The Eye. I mean, I've heard bits of Fatal Portrait, and again, the production, I mean, in many ways, they weren't completely greatly mixed or produced albums. But, I mean, compared to an album like Melissa, when some say it sounds raw, it sounds crystal clear to my ears. It has a clarity to it. It just sounds perfect to my ears. And so, again, I am definitely I am satisfied with the reissue. I am definitely looking forward to getting my copy of the EP in. So I definitely wanted to kind of talk about at least the reissues. I think they did fine job with the Melissa, with the reissue of Melissa. I think they handled it pretty well. Again, everything's got a nice look to it. I mean, even the artwork. It doesn't have, I mean, if you've ever seen any of the original CD pressings for Melissa, you know that the artwork for it looks altered. You know they added a lot of darkness to it. They may even color tints was even added to it. It has more of a blackish, brown, reddish look to it, and it doesn't look very appealing. Because again, when you look at the at least as far as when it came to CD price, I think the 2005 deluxe CD reissue and this new reissue, I think, are the closest to it, really bringing back the original color tint of the artwork that were found on the old vinyl pressings in the back in the day. Because it just had a real nice, contrast to them. They were bright. You could see every single detail. It was of every bit of what the artist did with it. Again, I don't want to butcher his name, but he is a fantastic artist. He did plenty of the artworks for King Diamond and Mercyful Fate, and even other bands like Wolf, for an example. He's done a great job. He's a great artist. He did perfect with those albums. And Melissa, the artwork for that one, just in many ways, it is one of the exceptions of the artwork that really sounds like the album. The album sounds like the artwork, or the artwork sounds like the album. It's that definition. It's the best. It's the example of that. It sounds so great. It just has, again, the artwork pretty much, it depicts the album itself. So, and that I just, again, having the new copy, it just looks great. So I'm definitely gonna have to change the topic here again after that. Again, I don't want to. I want to talk a lot about that album, but for a podcast, so I don't want this to be too long. So I'm definitely gonna move on. Again, they're great reissues. If you don't own those albums on CD or even on vinyl yet, I think these would be the copies you should seek out for. Though it seems to be, if you want this on vinyl, you probably should get the European pressings of this, because you'll get the more representation of that the mastering and everything, of the original dynamic stuff. Apparently, the U.S. Vinyl pressings are using the remasters for some of the squished brick-walled remasters, apparently, that King Diamond does not approve of. So that, who knows where that all got fucked. So, it's almost like the same thing on how King Diamond doesn't know about how that other mix of the song Melissa that ended up on Megaforce, on the Megaforce pressing of Melissa, doesn't even know where that mix came from, or where that even came from, how that even happened. He is so clueless on what that happened. Again, it could be on reading the notes for Don't Break the Oath, since he had more involvement with Don't Break the Oath and had less involvement with Melissa. Probably proves that why. Gives the indicator, might prove why there were two mixed versions of the song Melissa. So with that, I'm definitely going to move on. This last topic might as well be the one that ends it, and this could be the topic where everyone probably tunes out of. It's on wrestling. That's definitely going some wrestling talk here. I know this past week, AEW, they had their Double or Nothing pay-per-view, which I only watched at least the pre-show for it. I didn't really get to see all of the show, even though I kind of figured who was going to win, who was going to lose. I saw that. I know right now there's a lot of talk on the Stadium Stampede match. I know there's a lot of that, and I know a certain somebody is definitely had his conniption over it. But definitely, what I saw of it, it was a crazy fucking match. It definitely is. It's more to really on the topic of it being wrestling. It's definitely more gimmick, but still, from what I've seen, you know what? I'm guilty of enjoying what I had seen. I'm guilty of it, so I actually enjoyed it. I mean, that's where I'm gonna kind of stop there. I know. I think the one thing that I definitely want to also kind of talk about is it was like I was on the last AEW Dynamite episode from at least the week of Double or Nothing. It seems to have had the talk of that week. It seemed like to me, it seemed like it was the one that the biggest takeaway from that episode for me, at least the one that left the most impression, was the fucking the confrontation between, of course, the legends such as Arn Anderson and Jake the Snake Roberts. Now, again, it's something that these two never had a match. They never had a match together. They never once had it. Even when Jake the Snake went to WCW in the early 90s, they never had a match together. Again, Arn Anderson, I know at one point went to the WWF along with Tully Blanchard, and they were called the Brainbusters, but when Arn went back to WCW, by the time I think Jake the Snake then went there, they didn't really have a match together. But hearing from the promo that at least these two could cut, even at the age that they are in, they still can still be pretty convincing. I mean, Arn, again, is the biggest, one of the most underrated talkers, at least in wrestling. I know everyone, when it came to, I think, the members of the Four Horsemen, it's either Ric Flair. In many aspects, it's either Ric Flair that gets a lot of the attention, but Arn is like the most underrated guy of the Four Horsemen, who was again a guy that could cut one of the best promos for sure, and definitely I feel is definitely criminally underrated, and as far as also even in the ring. But hearing at his age, he still can do it. He can still cut it. Now I don't think he'll ever be able to. He's no longer in his prime. He can't really do a match. There's no way he could probably do it. Even when he spine bust Sean Spears last year at fucking Double or Nothing last year, it's still or was it Double or Nothing? Yeah, it was Double or Nothing. You know, he's still was it Double or Nothing last year? Or was it All Out? It was All Out. You know, over there, he's still even with that, I don't know if he can be able to, to pull off another wrestling match. He's definitely pretty old. But for a guy that at least age to cut a promo that he had cut, that's another high caliber promo that at times that even puts to shame a lot of the newer guys at times these days, especially those on WWE. I mean, for as many years as Arn Anderson that was employed in the WWE, formerly WWF, that was employed there, it's something that he was never given for a lot of guys that were put, the train guys to do, as far as promo class, which is something they have when they train guys to be on their product, on their show. They'll train guys they've got some, again, called promo class. It's something that Arn Anderson was not given much to be a part of that. Because if there's anybody else that I think anybody really should learn something from as far as to cut a good, believable, and quality promo, it should have been Arn Anderson. But the people that they had picked to do that, and at least to train the guys, it's I would say it was a shitty fucking deal. And the way that they treated Arn Anderson, I think towards the end of his career, I think is a fucking shame. At least in a way, he's treated with a lot more better respect here in AEW than he was actually in WWE. I mean, for the longest time that he was employed by that company, it's just, who knows? Vince is a weird motherfucker. He's fucking weird. But still, I enjoyed the promo between Jake the Snake and Arn Anderson. I mean, two legends, and I thought they, even though as believable, it had just, I think, put to shame to most other guys. If them at that age can still pull off, how come other guys as much can't completely pull off a good, believable segment, good, believable stuff? Even if I dig most of the stuff on AEW and at times even on WWE's NXT show, there's still a bit of a something there that they pull off, that they do, that some are not given good enough chance to do. It's old school being done by the guys who made old school. That's the best way I can sum it up. Those two guys and that segment. Even if I'm a fan of the guys such as MJF, who of course again one of the newer guys, who was at least very goddamn entertaining and who was actually a great modern representation of a great heel, and who gets good heel heat. And as far as also good faces, I dig Moxley, who I think is a great face. Great crowd face who definitely does good. Then of course I even dig even also a guy like Adam Page. I dig him. And as far as on the WWE crowd, at least I dig guys like right now the recent champion Drew McIntyre. I dig him. I like on NXT. I like of course Tommaso Ciampa, who I've been a fan since his days in Ring of Honor. He was always one of my favorites in Ring of Honor, and seeing him in WWE and on NXT, he is able to still be Tommaso Ciampa, and he's still at least is one of the best, at least on there. He is actually again, I love the segment between him and Adam Cole. I love that segment that happened early this year before the whole pandemic happened and everything. I enjoyed that fucking segment. I mean, from the way Tommaso Ciampa, again, called out Adam Cole and then basically called him out and wanted to demand for a championship match. And he goes out there and then, of course, William Regal and everything. It's like almost kind of giving the ease a little bit of there's going to be some chaos going. And then as Adam Cole walks up there and as Tommaso Ciampa walks up close to Adam Cole, he gets hit in the fucking head by the damn microphone from Adam Cole and busts Tommaso Ciampa open, but then Tommaso Ciampa then gets back, retains his strength and ability, and fucking gets some offense in on Adam Cole and either he power bombs him onto the fucking table that he brought into the ring, and then as he gets the fucking papers of the contract paper for the match. Or at least to sign the championship match, he instead wipes the blood off his fucking head and onto the paper and basically making apparent that the contract is now signed in blood. I thought that was a great segment. It definitely it brought me back to the time when I actually was when at least to an era that at times it's very difficult for guys to really recreate in some ways, but it was a great era. It brought me back to my childhood. I loved every bit of that segment. And again, I wish there were more stuff that was going on the main roster like that. I mean, you get more of that on AEW in some way, shape, or form. You'll still get some of that. They're more able to do that, but it seems like for a company like WWE, it seems like they have a difficult time trying to do that because of they're so skittish. They are so afraid of trying to give guy, something to at least to be enjoyed and entertained. And it's something. I mean, last week, this most recent NXT episode, we had a cage match between, of course, Matt Riddle and, of course, new guy Timothy Thatcher, who I have been very familiar with, especially during his days in MLW. I mean, I began watching MLW last year, which is a wrestling show on YouTube. Even though their roots goes back to the early mid-2000s after the whole demise of some of the other companies like WCW and ECW, they were kind of, they started by the time, same time Ring of Honor had started back in that era and were definitely were responsible for also giving us guys like CM Punk and so on. But I didn't begin watching MLW until last year. By the time I think AEW was starting out, so I wanted to kind of check out some other wrestling shows, and since to find out that there are 2 wrestling shows on YouTube, one of them being, of course, the revived NWA with NWA Power, I decided to check on MLW, and I've been a fan ever since watching it. And Timothy Thatcher was a guy that I thought was pretty good. He's not your typical high flyer these days. I mean, a lot of the wrestling shows these days, at least for AEW, WWE, and of course, Impact, they got a lot more high flyer guys. It's definitely, and of course, Ring of Honor, you got a lot of high flyers. And that's it, which again, back in the day, the only high flyers you had were part of the mid-card scene. I mean, they didn't build up a lot of the whole show. They didn't make up the whole entire wrestling show. These days, there's way more high flyers than there really is. And it kind of, in many ways, takes away some of the variety that you might see in a wrestling show. I mean, it's no problem having a high-flying, group in a wrestling show, or at least on a wrestling company, but you also have to make sure that you have at least, you've got one group of high flyers, one group of, technical or submission era, type wrestlers, your big hoss fight type of guys, and of course, just your straight up guys, and even that might mix in all of that. You have to have at least, your middle ground between the two types and your two stable, but it seems like there's more high flyers than there is at least. You're that, and it takes away any of the variety. However, a guy like Timothy Thatcher falls in that technical submission wrestling group. He at times he very well could be in a throwback to guys like Bret Hart or Owen Hart, and again, those kind of guys, or even for an example, even a guy like Daniel Bryan's. Bryan Danielson. He's more of a throwback to guys of who, again, the submission wrestlers that you probably would see back in the 80s to 90s. He's kind of a throwback to those kind of guys. And the Miss Cage match, which of course also had special guest referee Kurt Angle. Now, this match was to be treated like almost like a mixed martial arts or MMA style match. And again, the cage, it wasn't your typical steel cage or wrestling steel cage, and instead was like almost something you would see, again, for an MMA match. It's a cage, and it was almost like treated like a modern version of the Lion's Den match, which was something that I think WWE or WF tried back during the day when they had got in guys, like Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock, who are again both very much renowned in the MMA world, but when they had entered in WWF for wrestling, they wanted to bring in the Lion's Den match, which then when Ken Shamrock was feuding with Owen Hart, they had the Lion's Den match, and it was a little different look. It was its own cage, its own thing, but it wasn't being a cage that was being sounded in an actual wrestling. It was put in its own little area in that same arena. But they seemed to, but the whole cage match thing they had, or the cage fight match, was like the modern representation. Instead of being in its own area, they just made a cage, or built a cage that could surround the wrestling ring. I thought it was a great gimmick. It was a great idea. And since they have guys like Brock Lesnar, they could do this with him. However, they gave it with Matt Riddle, since Matt Riddle does have a little bit of background in MMA. He at least trained in it. He knows some of his moves, even though he, in some ways, he's a little bit kind of, I feel he might be a little, kind of sketchy. He's a little bit kind of, stiff, and some of it, there seems to be a little bit of a unfocusedness in terms of that, but he still knows at least his moves. But it seemed like within the beginning of that match, he apparently knocks out fucking Timothy Thatcher's teeth. Or at least two of his teeth. And it actually, caused it, kind of stopped a little bit of the match. And again, they had a medical guy out there with the flashlight looking at him through the cage, looking at the part where he was at least his bottom mouth of it. Now, it's just crazy that just at least a month or a few months ago, female wrestler over at AEW, Britt Baker, or who is going by the Doctor, Britt Baker, who of course is dating Adam Cole over at AEW, had a spot with where she was in the ring with a certain Japanese wrestler, and she apparently knocks her teeth out. Well, that I have no clue whether or not was faked, if they used phony teeth. But the thing with Timothy Thatcher, that looked kind of realistic. I think that actually was it looked realistic to me. So I think that was probably at least real. But that was, it was an interesting match. That was definitely for sure. So that's kind of, I think that's probably going to, I think from that, I can go along with the wrestling talk here, but I think that's probably going to be it, at least. There's plenty of stuff. Now they're starting to feud between Mike Tyson and Chris Jericho in AEW, and the segment, because they brought him in for the TNT Championship match, which they had debuted at Double or Nothing. It was between Cody Rhodes and Lance Archer, who of course is being managed by Jake the Snake. which hence why there was a bit of a segment, or that confrontation segment between Arn Anderson and Jake the Snake Roberts. It's because of Arn is on Cody Rhodes' side because of Arn Anderson's, if you're familiar with the old 80s, 1980s wrestling and the NWA, you know that Arn Anderson did plenty of stuff with, of course, Cody Rhodes' dad being the great Dusty Rhodes. So the relationship there, in a sense, he is right now always at Cody Rhodes' corner. Arn Anderson is at Cody Rhodes' corner, along with, of course, Cody Rhodes' brother, Dustin Rhodes, best known as Goldust, or the natural Dustin Rhodes. Still, great, and they debuted the very first TNT Championship match at Double or Nothing, that they did a tournament, and apparently Lance Archer pretty much beat Dustin Rhodes in a pretty bloody fashion on there. He had beat him up in a bloody fashion. It was a pretty good match. Again, Dustin Rhodes is probably in the best shape he's ever been in. He definitely, and he still can fucking perform. He is still a great wrestler. And the match he had with Lance Archer was pretty good, but the part where Lance Archer had busted him open in that one of the semifinals, or close to the finals of that tournament, it was a pretty good old school style wrestling match, and they definitely it was good. And and Lance Archer won. It was originally Cody Rhodes was gonna stop the match and throw the towel in, but Dustin Rhodes told him not to, and well, Dustin Rhodes paid the price and he lost. So it was definitely, it started it, and since of course Cody Rhodes winning his match, his in finals, you kind of figured who was gonna how the very last final match were gonna be, and where the was gonna take place, and how it's gonna be. So Cody Rhodes won. Mike Tyson was one that was introducing the TNT Championship belt. So he was introducing that on there, and he brought it out. Cody Rhodes won and gave it to him, lifted his arm up. And then the following day, or the following Wednesday after that, Chris Jericho pretty much made it apparent he wants to go after Mike Tyson because of their apparently to revisit a previous beef he had with Mike Tyson back when he was in WWE on Raw back in 10 years ago in 2010. To Mike Tyson, I think, was a guest rep when it was during the time when Monday Night WWE were having like guest hosts, or special, at least celebrity guest hosts for Raw, which is considered the worst. Was again another dumb idea for WWE. It was a dumb idea. It was just a way to see if they can get ratings, but they did that, and Mike Tyson was one, and it made sense because of Shawn Michaels was still in, and since if you're not familiar with the Attitude, or at least how Stone Cold became, really, got that really huge push at WrestleMania 14 was because of the whole Austin Tyson segment that happened on Raw in '98. And since on there, and since during those build-ups to the WrestleMania match, Mike Tyson, it would seem like there was going to be a confrontation between him and Shawn Michaels, and then of course Mike Tyson gets his ripped shirt off by fucking Shawn Michaels, and it gets revealed he's now part of D-Generation X. He's now supporting him. So now there's they're kind of building the odds against Stone Cold, who is won the Royal Rumble and wanted to go and face Shawn Michaels to win the title. Well, on the night of WrestleMania 14, Mike Tyson interfered. Apparently he was the enforcer for that match, and apparently he was looks like he was gonna, I guess, help out Shawn Michaels. But instead he gives Shawn Michaels that classic uppercut, or that classic the punch, the Tyson punch that Mike Tyson was known for in boxing. He gave Shawn Michaels a punch, and then Stone Cold went for that pin, and Mike Tyson pinned 1, 2, 3. And so that basically made that. And since for over years, Shawn Michaels apparently had some beef. So on that night, on that episode of Raw for 2010, since Mike Tyson was hosting, Shawn Michaels wanted to confront Mike Tyson over those 10 or 11 years prior to that episode. That basically to bury, at least, or to get this. And apparently since Shawn Michaels is in a feud with Chris Jericho at that time, I think Chris Jericho thought that Mike Tyson was going to be on his side. But it turned out Mike Tyson gave Chris Jericho his famous Tyson punch. And then, of course, from there on, now we have this beef between Chris Jericho and Mike Tyson. Now it's culminating. Their segment on AEW is pretty much very reminiscent of the Austin Tyson segment that happened on Raw with that fucking pull 'em up. Everything was, it was just absolute fucking chaos. It was them basically doing it. It seemed like they were copying Pitt of that segment, even though I did thought it was funny, but it was definitely, you knew what they were doing. You knew that they were copying it. So I guess there's that feud going on. Now we're going to have Tyson Jericho, maybe. And since Mike Tyson's actually in good shape, he's in fine shape. Probably definitely more better shape than a guy like Arn Anderson is, but not to definitely throw any disrespect. Again, it's understandable. So with that, this is probably, I'm just going to end it right here. This was definitely, by the right now, one of the more longer ones I've done. One of the longer podcast episodes. So with that, I hope all enjoyed this one, Nasty Metal Podcast. There will definitely be an episode number 5 this coming next month. Sometime, again, it might be within the near the end of June. But with that, I hope all enjoyed. This is Every Thrice I'd say I'm out. And see y'all later. Take care, everyone.